Hey, this is Toby. Welcome back to another video. So we just continue to code our pattern recognition EA, where we try to use a search pattern to place some orders in MQL5. So if you have not seen the first parts, I will link the first video up here of the series. And let's continue here in our pattern recognition EA file. So first of all, I want to create some new inputs for our EA because we want to check if the correlation is high enough, if the correlation between the pattern and the last close prices is above a specific threshold. So here in the input section, we can create another group. I will just copy this general group here. And let's just name this pattern. And here, first of all, we want to set the file name for the pattern. Right now, we have it hard-coded into our EA. That's not very good practice. So we will use an input here for the file name, input, maybe a static input file name. And here we predefine this here with pattern.csv like this, and a comment file name. And next input is for the threshold of the correlation. So a input of type double called input maybe minimum correlation like this. And we predefine this with the value 0.85 maybe. A comment here. Minimum pattern correlation. And the last input for the pattern is also, maybe of type integer. Input minimum size. What we want to add to our EA is that we only take trades on patterns that are maybe roughly the same size as our search pattern, because I don't think it makes sense to take a trade if the search pattern is like 500 points and the pattern of the last close prices is just 10 points. Can still be a very high correlation, but the size difference is just too much. So we want to limit this and set a minimum size. And this is maybe in percent. So I will add percent here. So we set this maybe to 0 or 80%. So the close prices, the pattern of the close prices has to be 80% at least of the search pattern. Minimum pattern size in percent, like this. And let's create another group. So that's it for the pattern inputs. And let's call this trading. Okay, so here the first input for the trading group will be the order type. So we can select if we find a pattern with a high correlation, if you want to take a buy market order, sell market order, set a buy stop, sell stop, or limit. So input, and for this I will use the enum order type. And the name is just input order type here, and we predefine this to order type buy, just a simple market buy order, and also a comment here order type. Next input is for the level. So of course, if we have a market order, we don't need a level, but for example, for the buy stop and buy limit, we need a level where we want to set the pending order. So input of type, this is also in percent, integer input. I will explain the input in a few seconds and give you an example. So input order level in percent. And here we predefine this with I don't know, 20%. Order level in percent. Next input for the stop loss, also in percent of the pattern size. So input stop loss percent. This can be maybe, I don't know, 120% of the pattern size. So stop loss in percent, and the same for the take profit. Take profit in percent, and let's set this to a default value of, I don't know, 200. Maybe change the stop loss to 70. And here the comment, take profit in percent. Okay, let's align this, and then I will give you an example of the inputs so it's easier to understand. So let's move this here. This is the furthest to the right. Let's also align all the other inputs. Of course, this is not important for the code, but it's easier to read. And also the predefined values here. This, and the comments. This one here. Okay, let's also hit compile and make sure that you don't have any mistakes. I have one. Let's see, input file name without type. Yeah, static input string, of course. Here for the file name. Let's compile again. Okay, now let me try to explain all the inputs. So file name, of course, is the file name of the pattern file. Minimum correlation. Yeah, this is the threshold for the correlation. Of course, we will also check for a negative correlation and flip the pattern around, basically, for short positions. So also a correlation of minus 0.9 would be fine to take some trades. Now with the minimum size here, as I said, I want to avoid a big size difference of the pattern and the close prices. So for example, if we have our pattern here, let me draw this in blue. So this is our pattern, for example, something like this. And if we find a pattern now that has the same shape, but is basically very, very small. So for example, like this, this would still be a very high correlation, right? But the size difference is just too big. And maybe this pattern here is not relevant. We want the search pattern and the last close prices to be roughly, around the same size, I think. Okay, so that's the input for the minimum size, and the input is also in percent of the pattern span. So from the maximum value of the pattern to the lowest or minimum value of the search pattern. Yeah, now I have this ugly drawing here, but I will keep it. So 80% just means, okay, the close prices pattern has to be at least 80% of the search pattern to be valid. Okay, next we have the order type. With the order type, we can select what we want to do. When we find a pattern with the right correlation and the right size, do we want to immediately open a buy position or a sell position, or set a sell stop or limit into the market? And if we have a sell stop or buy limit, for example, we of course need a price where we want to set that pending order. And that's here the next input order level in percent. And this is in percent of the pattern. So 0 would be, if I go back here and take another color. So 0 would be here at the minimum of the search pattern. This is 0%. And up here would be 100%. So if we are at this point here and we found our pattern and we want to set a sell stop, for example, and we set that order level to, I don't know, 20%, our sell stop would be here. So 20%. We can also do like minus 50%. So this would be here, minus 50. This would be 20. We can also set, for example, a sell limit at 120%. This would be here. So we are very flexible with that order level. Yeah. Next input is here for the stop loss in percent. Now the stop loss and the take profit in percent is in percent of the size of the pattern. So if we have a 100% stop loss, that would mean the stop loss is like exactly the size of the pattern. 200% would be twice the size of the pattern, and the same for the take profit. And this is of course added to the order level, or if we take a market order at the current price. Okay, let's remove that. And that's it for the inputs for now. I hope it was easy to understand. If you have a question, just write me a comment. And let's also hit compile again. Here, just make sure you don't have any mistakes before we continue to code. Okay, now the next step, we want to switch our hard-coded file name here with our input. So where we load the pattern, here, we now can delete this hard-coded string and replace it with our input file name. So we can change the file name from outside. Okay, and next we want to compute the pattern size. So we are able to check if the pattern has the correct size. So for this, I will go to the global variables here, and I want to create another global variable of type integer called pattern size in points. And we also set this to 0 maybe. And let's calculate the pattern size. So here in the onTick, we have our close array and our pattern array. And after we calculate the correlation, before this print statement here, and let's also calculate the pattern size. So let's declare a variable here of type double called size in points. And we get the size of the current close price array, or the span basically, of the maximum and minimum value. So we can use the array maximum here, close array. Yeah, we start at 0, the whole array, so we don't need to specify any more parameters. And we subtract our array minimum, also from the close array, like this. And to have this in points, we just divide by the point value of the current symbol. And we also need to do this here in brackets, like this. Maximum minus minimum divided by points. And let's declare another variable of type double called size in percent. So here we can now take our size points and divide this by the global variable pattern size in points and multiply this by 100. Of course, we still need to calculate the size of the pattern, but we only need to do this once. So we will do this after we load the pattern and not here in the onTick. So let's hit compile here. Oh, and I think this array maximum function here just returns the index of the maximum value and not the actual value. So we need to use this as an index in our close array dynamic array here. So here, this array maximum closed array in squared brackets here. Maybe I will add some space so it's easier to see. And also here, close array and the array minimum return value as a index here, like this. Close array with this index of the maximum value minus close array with this index of the minimum value divided by point. Okay, and let's also print this out here in this print statement. So correlation, and we can add maybe size in points, and here we just add our size points variable, and we can also say % of search pattern, and this is our size in %. So this has to be over 80% in our case. Also, I want to change the size points here to a integer. And for this, we need to cast this whole thing into an integer. Add a bracket here, bracket after points, and now we should be able to compile. We are missing a bracket here. Like this. Let's compile. And what we also should do is to set the number of digits here for the size % variable when we print it to the log. So we can use the double to string function, and here again the size in %, and now the number of digits are 2. We don't need any decimal points here, like this. Can you see everything? Yeah. And let's compile again. Okay, this should be fine here. Let's go to let's copy this line here where we calculate the size in points, and I will add this now to the load pattern function here. Here, after we set the pattern bars, I add this here, and here instead of the size points, I will use now the global variable pattern size in points. And instead of the close array, of course, we use our pattern array now. So just replace the close array with the pattern array. Divide this by points. And we can also print out a message here for the two values. So first of all, search pattern size in points. And here pattern size in points. And before that, we can also print out the number of bars. Search pattern bars. Pattern bars. Okay, we don't need this. So search pattern bars, for example, 10, and size in points is 200, for example. Okay, now let's hit compile again. Make sure we don't have any mistakes. I will also compile here using the script, so we can now test it in a strategy tester and see if these values are correct. Okay, so let's switch to the visual tester here. I will close the old window, and here metatrader 5 platform. Same settings as for the last test we did. Visual mode, euro dollar, select the EA. Now for the inputs, I will just use the default inputs. and we should see the pattern size printed in the log. I start here. Yeah, we can see this is our pattern array first of all. Search pattern bars 16, and the size in points is 353. So this is the span of the pattern. It's roughly here, this point and that point here. Yeah, that's correct. And now we can already see the correlation with the current close prices, and the size in points of the close prices here is 144. So that's, of course, close prices. Yeah, it's also correct. And percentage of search pattern is 0. Now this is of course not correct. And that's probably because of integer division. So we need to change this here in the onTick. So we can't divide here integer with integer, or we can, but we lose the data. So we'll just cast this pattern size points here to a double like this. Let's compile again using the script, and let's start another test in the visual tester. And now we can see, yeah, it's 40% of the search pattern, so it's below our 80% threshold. And yeah, I can just jump a few bars, and we can see the size and the percent of the search pattern. So this is, for example, 125%, so this would be fine. But the correlation, of course, is below our threshold. And that's what we do next. But yeah, I think we will do this in the next part to check the correlation, check the pattern size, and take some action when we meet the criteria. And if you don't want to miss that, make sure to subscribe to my channel, write a comment if you have a question. And if you want to learn MQL5 from the ground up or even more advanced stuff, check out my programming courses on my website. And yeah, I will see you in the next part. Have a great week. Good trades. Bye-bye.